User-centered design. Week 4 and 5. Getting feedback. From observation to feedback. The third part of the usability cycle. Gathering information, i.e. user types, market needs. Design, i.e. applying design principles, using personas and use cases. Gathering feedback, i.e. removing your ego and make the best application you can for your users. Iterative design process. IDEO's human-centered design process. 1. Ideation. 2. Rapid prototyping. 3. User feedback. 4. Iteration. 5. Implementation. 6. Observation. Getting feedback. Types of feedback. Feedback types. Paper prototypes. Surveys. Interviews. Usability tests. Other, see usability engineering. Focus groups. Log analysis. Setting up for feedback. Receiving criticism is not fun. Nobody enjoys getting feedback. However, it is essential. In most of your tutorials, you are constantly asked to review your peers' work. It is humbling to know that you will not be able to hit a home run right off the bat. Embrace feedback. It is your best tool. As programmers, we are often enamored with programming challenges. This is fine, we are not telling you to be enamored with users. However, you need to ensure that your application is on track in the design and business sense by involving your users. Knowing when to listen to your user. Users' feedback is not the rule. The key is to know when feedback is useful or relevant. If there is one user out of 100 who is adamant that a scrolling marquee is in vogue right now, you would probably not take that into consideration. Unless you really like a scrolling marquee. Which in that case you should really not. Types of user. Information overloader. These will be very eager to tell you absolutely everything. Even if they are not relevant. So you will need to sift through the noise. The control freak. These users will try to be very pedantic about controls. They would also try to run the tests or surveys. Or create their own questions. The devil's advocate. These will try to find problems wherever they could. You will need to see if they are actual problems. Negativity is not productive. Users can be negative. Well, developers can be negative too. Sometimes the best thing to do is to look at what works and go from there. Feedback. Leverage on social media. Friends. Peers. Competitors. In fact, talk to all of them. User research methods. User experience research methods. What UX methods to use and when. Requirement stage, who are the users and customers. Survey. Persona. Contextual inquiry. Stakeholder interviews. Competitive analysis. Quality function deployment. What are users trying to do? Task analysis. Top tasks analysis. Three-dimensional framework. Attitudinal versus behavioral. Qualitative, formative versus quantitative, summative. Context of use. Formative versus summative. Do formative usability testing at the start of the design phase, testing with paper prototypes and similar. Do this to discover insights and shape the design direction. Do summative usability testing during the latter half of the development phase, testing with actual working prototypes. Do this to determine metrics, time on task, success rates, which you would then compare test results from improved versions against. Usability test protocol usually employed. Formative versus summative, evaluative. Formative usability testing. Beginning stages of the design process. Provides valuable insights of where users have difficulty reaching their user goals with the technology, website, desktop GUI design, hardware product, or service. Summative usability testing. Quality assurance (QA) type of test. Usually performed later in the development process. Formal user acceptance testing before the product is released to the target audience. Observations. Why can't we just ask users what they want? You can observe a lot by just watching Yogi Berra, MLB player, quote machine. If I had asked my customers what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. Henry Ford, car inventor. So, often it's better to watch what people do than to only design solely for what they say. Especially when what people say equals what they do. Ethnography. In anthropology, ethnography developed as a way to explore the everyday realities of people living in small-scale, non-Western societies and to make understandings of those realities available to others. Today, ethnography is applied to the study of people and social groups in specific settings within large industrialized societies, such as workplaces, senior centers, and schools. Jeanette Blomberg, anthropologist, IBM Research; Mark Burrell, psychologist, Microsoft Corporation. 3 principles of ethnography. Holistic, tiny details into big picture context, attempt to look at things broadly, understand the context. Natural settings, directly observe in the things that you're trying to study. Descriptive, focus on recording behavior, analysis comes later. Diary studies. Users are requested to record feedback and/or events on a specific part of a product experience. Can be on any medium, paper, voice, videos or audio recordings. Usually lasts a week to 2 weeks. Daily support from the UX personnel running the study. Diary is then analyzed by a consultant. Debriefing at the end of the study with the user. Usually lasts a week to 2 weeks. Daily support from the UX personnel running the study. Diary is then analyzed by a consultant. Debriefing at the end of the study with the user. Advantages. Rich data covers responses over time. Context-rich data, user experience may be related to external and internal aspects. Disadvantages. Resource-intensive, time, can be expensive. Self-reporting bias. Highly reliant on user participation. Surveys. Challenges recap. You fill so many out. Tempting to think you know how to write them. Creating a useful and reliable survey is an art form. You not only have to know which questions to ask but how to frame the questions using concise and impartial words. Survey. Coverage error. Do you get to everyone using your system? Sampling error. If you only talk to a sample, some error. Non-response error. Survey the correct people, but what if not all answer? Measurement error. People don't answer accurately. Measurement error. Ask factual questions people often answer themselves. Generally no problem. Ask questions people need to think about. The way you ask the question could influence the answer. Social desirability, answer so as to be viewed favorably, self-administered interviewer. Acquiescence, bend to the view of the question. Individuals are more to blame than social conditions for crime and lawlessness in this country, 60% agreed. Social conditions are more to blame than individuals for crime and lawlessness in this country, 57% agreed. Surveys. Recommendations. Types of questions. Open-ended questions where you ask a question and leave space for the user to write free-form answers. This is used if you would like to know more about specifics that you were not confident of and to explore other aspects of the problem. Closed-ended questions where you provide the answers and ask the users to select one or more. Use this if you know for sure what are the parameters and variables you are looking for, and also if you want to use a scale like the SUS or other metrics. Start with a screener. Screeners are important questions to help you target the correct audience for your surveys. Start by asking if they use the site app on that specific platform. Remember that this assignment requires that you survey current users and not potential users. Do not lead the user. It is not a good idea to project negative or positive sentiments in your questions. For instance, instead of trying to navigate between courses in Blackboard is confusing, what do you think? You can say, how often do you switch between courses on Blackboard? Did you have any problems switching? Do not waste time. Every question should provide answers that would play a part in your analysis. Ask yourself this for every question. What can I do with the data? You are not studying the features but how easy it is to understand and access those features. Although you are indeed trying to find out if the users are happy with the app, you will need to be more specific about what you ask in order to produce a useful and actionable report. For instance, asking if friends would recommend an app to their friends will not help you identify the drawbacks of the interface. You are more interested in the whys. Your questions should be succinct, direct and does not contain jargons. Especially not the guidelines you learn in this course. Nobody not many know what is affordance or Nielsen's thingamajig. Keep to the point, and use natural common language so that your users does not have to do guesswork. Also maintains their confidence. If you want to ask for temporal data, how often do you define the timeline within the last month? For instance, instead of, how often do you visit abc.zis? Not so good, you can say, in the past 6 months, how often have you visited abc.zis? Better. Don't make the user feel tested. For instance, instead of, I was very confused. Agree, disagree, you can say, the app made it very confusing to navigate around. Agree, disagree. Users. How many? Not a very helpful answer, depends. A little more helpful, what sort of information are you trying to obtain? How much value would this information bring? Depends. See earlier lectures. How many users needed? Using 5 users to find 84% problems with each of the 3 design iterations. Using 15 users to find 99% of problems with 1 design iteration. Nielsen. How many users? The bigger issue is actually approaching the right users. Have a good mix. Balanced users. Do not test them with fellow developers. You will end up spending hours debating the merits of using some CSS API like Bootstrap or Semantic UI. 3-dimensional framework. Attitudinal versus behavioral, qualitative, formative versus quantitative, summative, context of use. Formative versus summative. Do formative usability testing at the start of the design phase, testing with paper prototypes and similar. Do this to discover insights and shape the design direction. Do summative usability testing during the latter half of the development phase, testing with actual working prototypes. Do this to determine metrics, time on task, success rates, which you would then compare test results from improved versions against. Usability test protocol usually employed. Formative versus summative, evaluative. Formative usability testing. Beginning stages of the design process. Provides valuable insights of where users have difficulty reaching their user goals with the technology, website, desktop GUI design, hardware product, or service. Summative usability testing. Quality assurance (QA) type of test. Usually performed later in the development process. Formal user acceptance testing before the product is released to the target audience.